The coffee cup shook in Diane Carter's hand. Not a tremble, a full shake, the kind that comes when adrenaline floods your system and your body forgets how to be still. Hot liquid spilled over the rim, burning her thumb. She barely felt it. She was staring at her computer screen in her home office, the glow of the monitor washing her face in cold blue light. The email sat there, 5 lines long, sent from her own company's HR portal. Effective immediately, your employment with Carter and Associates Marketing Solutions has been terminated. Your final paycheck will be processed within 72 hours. Please return all company property by end of business Friday. From her own husband's company, the company that bore her maiden name, the company she'd helped him build from a spare bedroom 12 years ago. Diane clicked refresh. The email didn't change. She read it again. The words stayed the same. Cold, corporate, distant, no phone call, no warning, no conversation, just fired. Her eyes drifted to the framed photo on her desk, David with his arm around her shoulders at the company's 10th anniversary party. Both of them smiling, both of them celebrating what they'd built together. She picked up her phone. Her finger hovered over his contact. Then she saw the time. 11:47 p.m. David wasn't home. He hadn't been home before midnight in 3 weeks. Diane set the phone down. She stared at the ceiling. The fan rotated slowly above her, the same rhythm it had kept for the 9 years they'd lived in this house in suburban Seattle. She knew every water stain on that ceiling, every crack in the paint. She'd spent a lot of time staring at it lately. Something whispered in the back of her mind, something she'd been pushing away for months. What if it isn't just work keeping him late? Diane had met David Carter at a marketing conference in Chicago. She was 26, ambitious, working as a junior account executive at a mid-sized agency. He was 28, charming, working in sales for a tech startup that would fold 6 months later. They'd both reached for the same lukewarm coffee at the Continental breakfast bar. "Sorry," he'd said, pulling his hand back. "No, go ahead." She'd smiled. "I've already had 3 cups. Any more and I'll be vibrating through the keynote." He'd laughed. They'd talked. 3 hours later, they were still talking at a corner table in the hotel restaurant, the conference completely forgotten. David had dreams, big ones. He wanted to start his own marketing consultancy, something lean, something smart, something that treated clients like partners instead of paychecks. Diane had the same dream. They exchanged numbers, then emails, then late-night phone calls that stretched until 3 a.m. 6 months later, they were dating. 2 years later, they were married. 3 years after that, they started Carter and Associates in the 2nd bedroom of their first apartment. Diane handled strategy and creative. David handled sales and client relations. They complemented each other perfectly. His charm opened doors. Her brilliance kept clients coming back. The first year, they barely broke even. The second year, they hired 2 employees. By year 5, they had an office downtown and 15 people on payroll. By year 10, Carter and Associates was billing 7 figures annually. They'd built it together. Every late night, every pitch deck, every celebration and every crisis. Diane had been VP of Operations. David was CEO. Equal partners, or so she'd thought. The cracks started small. David began traveling more. Client meetings in Portland, conferences in San Francisco, strategy sessions in Denver. Diane understood. Growth required visibility, but the trips grew longer. The calls home grew shorter. Then came the new hire. Her name was Vanessa Reeves, 29 years old, Stanford MBA, impeccable resume, sharp suits, and sharper ambition. David brought her in as Director of Client Engagement, a role that hadn't existed before and one that, frankly, overlapped significantly with Diane's responsibilities. "She's a game changer," David had said at the team meeting introducing Vanessa. His eyes lit up when he talked about her. "She's going to help us scale to the next level." Diane had smiled. shaken Vanessa's hand, welcomed her to the team, but something felt off. Vanessa worked late. So did David. Diane would call the office at 9 p.m., and Vanessa's extension would pick up before transferring to David's line. "Just strategizing for the Microsoft pitch," David would say. "Want me to come help?" Diane would offer. No, we've got it covered. Get some rest." Diane started noticing small things. David's cologne changed. His gym routine became more consistent. He bought new clothes, designer brands he'd never cared about before, and the way Vanessa looked at him during meetings. Not inappropriate, just attentive, the kind of attention that lingered a half-second too long. Diane told herself she was being paranoid. She told herself successful partnerships meant trusting your spouse. She told herself everything was fine. The first real humiliation happened at the quarterly shareholder dinner. Carter and Associates had brought on outside investors the previous year to fund expansion. The dinner was at a downtown steakhouse, sleek, expensive, the kind of place where power players made deals over whiskey and Wagyu. Diane had prepared talking points about their Q3 performance. She'd dressed carefully, a navy dress that was professional but confident. When she arrived, David was already at the table with 3 investors. Vanessa sat at his right hand. "Diane?" David stood kissing her cheek. "You remember Marcus, Joel, and Catherine?" "Of course." Diane shook hands, took the empty seat, 2 chairs down from David. The conversation flowed. Business metrics, market expansion, competitive positioning. Diane waited for the right moment to present her Q3 insights. That moment never came. Every time she started to speak, someone interrupted. Marcus would ask David a question. Joel would tell a story. Catherine would laugh at David's joke. And Vanessa spoke with authority about client retention strategies, growth projections, and brand positioning, topics Diane had developed. "Vanessa's been instrumental in our pivot strategy," David said, his hand briefly touching Vanessa's shoulder. A casual gesture, a proud one. Diane's throat tightened. She sipped her wine. She smiled when expected. She nodded when appropriate. But inside, something crumbled. When dessert came, Catherine turned to Diane. "So what do you do at the company, dear?" Dear. As if Diane were a spouse attending her husband's work function, not the co-founder of the entire operation. "I'm VP of Operations," Diane said evenly. "Oh." Catherine's eyebrows lifted in surprise. "I thought Vanessa handles client engagement," Diane clarified. "I oversee internal operations, strategy development, and—" "Diane's being modest," David interjected, his tone light but dismissive. "She keeps the trains running on time while Vanessa and I focus on scaling." Keeps the trains running on time. Like she was middle management. Like she was an administrator. Like she hadn't built this company from nothing. Diane excused herself to the restroom. She stood at the sink staring at her reflection. Her hands gripped the marble counter. "You're overreacting," she told herself. He didn't mean it that way. But when she returned to the table, David and Vanessa were leaning close, reviewing something on Vanessa's phone, laughing, and Diane sat 2 chairs away, invisible. The second humiliation cut deeper. The annual company retreat was held at a resort in the San Juan Islands, a tradition Diane had started to reward the team and foster bonding. This year, 60 employees attended. Diane had always given the keynote address. Always. It was her moment to connect with the team, to remind everyone of the company's values and vision. But this year, David asked Vanessa to deliver it. "She has fresh perspective," David said when Diane questioned him. "The team needs to hear from new leadership." "I'm not new leadership," Diane said carefully. "I'm original leadership. Don't take it personally." David didn't look up from his laptop. "It's just business." Just business. The keynote was brilliant. Vanessa spoke about innovation, disruption, and bold moves. The team gave her a standing ovation. Diane sat in the back row, clapping with everyone else. That night at the cocktail hour, an employee, someone Diane had personally mentored, approached Vanessa with a question about career development. The employee walked right past Diane without acknowledgement. Later, during the awards ceremony, David presented the Game Changer Award, a new recognition Diane hadn't known existed. He gave it to Vanessa. "For transforming how we engage with clients and elevate our brand," David said, handing Vanessa a crystal trophy. The room erupted in applause. Diane's phone buzzed, a text from her friend Jennifer, who also worked at the company. "Are you okay?" Diane typed back, "Fine." She wasn't fine. She left the cocktail hour early, walked alone along the beach as the sun set over Puget Sound. The sand was cold beneath her feet. The waves whispered against the shore. When had she become a stranger in her own company? Diane started paying attention. She couldn't help it. Once you see cracks, you can't unsee them. David's late nights became later. His client dinners became more frequent. He stopped talking about work at home, said he needed to decompress and keep work separate. But he'd never done that before. They'd always debriefed together, always strategized together. Now, silence. Diane began checking the office calendar. David's meetings with Vanessa were blocked out in 3-hour chunks. Strategic planning. Client development. Vague labels that revealed nothing. She checked credit card statements. Dinners at expensive restaurants she'd never heard of. Hotel charges in Portland, twice in 1 week. "Business travel," David said when she asked. "Both of you went?" "Vanessa has relationships with some Portland tech firms. It made sense. You didn't mention it." "I'm mentioning it now." His tone carried irritation. "Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm not. I'm exhausted, Diane. Can we not do this?" He went upstairs. She heard the shower running. Diane sat alone in the kitchen. The house felt too big, too quiet. Her phone buzzed. A notification from LinkedIn. "Vanessa Reeves has updated her profile." Diane clicked. Vanessa's new title, Executive Vice President of Strategy. Diane's heart stopped. She opened the company's internal org chart. Her own title had been changed, from VP of Operations to a Senior Operations Manager. A demotion, quiet, subtle, unannounced. Her hands shook again. That same tremor from earlier. The one that meant your body knows something's wrong before your mind accepts it. She called David, voicemail. She texted, "We need to talk about the org chart." 3 hours later, he replied, "In a meeting? We'll talk later." They didn't talk later. David came home past midnight. Diane pretended to be asleep. She stared at the ceiling, counted the rotations of the fan. 1, 2, 3. Something was happening, something big, and she needed to know what. Before we continue, if you're feeling that tension right there, that knot in your stomach wondering what Diane's about to discover, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. And drop your city in the comments below. I want to know where all of you are watching from. Now let's get back to Diane. Diane hired a private investigator. She hated herself for it. Hated the cliché of it. Hated what it meant about her marriage. But she needed answers. The investigator's name was Marcus Levine. Mid-50s, former Seattle PD, ran a discreet firm that specialized in corporate and domestic cases. His office smelled like old coffee and leather. "What are you hoping to find?" Marcus asked, his pen poised over a yellow legal pad. "The truth," Diane said. "Most people say that, but what they really mean is confirmation of what they already suspect." Diane met his eyes. "I suspect my husband is having an affair with a woman at our company. I suspect he's pushing me out. I need to know if I'm right." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll need his schedule, phone records if you can access them, credit card statements." I have all of that. Diane slid a folder across the desk. Marcus opened it, flipped through pages. His expression didn't change. When do you want me to start? Yesterday. The first report came 3 days later. Diane sat in her car outside a coffee shop, reading Marcus's email on her phone. Subject. Initial findings. David and Vanessa met for dinner at Canlis on Tuesday. Reservation under his name. They arrived together at 7:30 p.m., left at 10:15 p.m. Behavior was familiar but not overtly physical. No hand-holding, no kissing. Conversation appeared intense. Vanessa appeared upset at one point. David placed his hand over hers briefly. See attached photo. Thursday afternoon, both attended a meeting at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. Room booked under Carter and Associates' corporate account. Meeting lasted 3 hours. I was unable to confirm the nature of the meeting. Diane scrolled to the photos. The first showed David and Vanessa at a candlelit table. His posture was leaned in, engaged, the way he used to lean toward Diane. The second showed them outside the hotel. Vanessa was smiling. David's hand rested lightly on the small of her back. Diane's vision blurred. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. She wanted to drive to the office and throw that email in David's face. Instead, she sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, and breathed. In, out, in, out. You don't have all the facts yet, she told herself. Don't jump to conclusions. But the evidence was piling up. The third humiliation happened in front of the entire company. Monthly all-hands meeting. 60 people packed into the main conference room, another 20 dialed in remotely. Diane stood at the back. She used to stand at the front, co-presenting with David, but Vanessa had taken that spot now. David began with quarterly results, strong numbers, growth across all metrics. And I want to recognize someone who's been pivotal to this success, David said. Vanessa, can you come up here? Vanessa walked to the front, all confidence and poise. Effective immediately, David announced. Vanessa will be promoted to Chief Strategy Officer. She'll be joining the executive leadership team and reporting directly to me. Applause filled the room. Diane's chest tightened. CSO was a C-suite position, equal to her own standing, except Diane's title had been quietly downgraded. But that wasn't the worst part. As part of this transition, David continued, we're restructuring operations. Diane will be transitioning out of day-to-day management to focus on special projects. Special projects. Corporate code for we're sidelining you. Eyes turned toward Diane. 60 pairs of eyes, some sympathetic, some curious, some gleeful. Office politics always created factions. Diane forced a smile, nodded. Inside, she shattered. After the meeting, Jennifer cornered her in the hallway. Di, what the hell is going on? I don't know, Diane whispered. Are they pushing you out? I think so. Why? Diane shook her head. I don't know. But she did know, or she suspected. The late nights, the hotels, the hand on Vanessa's back. David was replacing her. Professionally, personally, maybe both. Marcus's second report was more damning. David and Vanessa have been meeting regularly outside of work for the past 4 months. Most meetings occur at high-end restaurants or hotels. On 2 occasions, they stayed overnight in Portland, separate rooms but adjoining. On one occasion, last Thursday, they were observed entering the same hotel room at the Fairmont. They did not leave separately. Financial analysis. David has made 3 large cash withdrawals in the past 6 weeks, totaling $35,000. Purpose unknown. Also, David recently updated his life insurance policy, removing you as sole beneficiary and adding Vanessa as co-beneficiary at 50%. Diane read that last line 3 times, adding Vanessa as co-beneficiary at 50%. Her hands went numb. This wasn't just an affair. This was planning, transition. David was building a future that didn't include her. She called Marcus. "Can you keep following them?" "I can. But Mrs. Carter, I need to ask, what are you planning to do with this information?" "I don't know yet." "If you're considering legal action, you should speak with an attorney. Document everything. Don't confront him until you have a strategy." "I'm not ready to do that." "Then what are you ready to do?" Diane closed her eyes. "Find out the truth." Which brought her to tonight, to the email, to the termination notice. Diane forwarded the email to Marcus. Texted, "He fired me." Marcus called 30 seconds later. "When?" "An hour ago. I just saw it." "Have you spoken to him?" "He's not home." "Do you know where he is?" "No." A pause. Then, "I do. He's at Canlis, with Vanessa. I've been tailing them all evening. They're celebrating something." Diane's stomach dropped. Celebrating. They ordered champagne. Of course they did. Diane hung up. She sat in the dark of her home office, the only light coming from the computer screen. The termination email glowed like an accusation. Her mind raced. Options, strategies, responses. Then she remembered something. Something David didn't know. Something almost no one knew. Diane opened her laptop, navigated to a password-protected folder, found the file she needed. Building Deed, 1518 3rd Avenue, Seattle, WA. The building where Carter and Associates leased their offices. Diane had bought it 7 years ago, not through the company, personally. Using an inheritance from her grandmother, money David knew about but had never asked about. Diane had bought the building through an LLC, kept it separate from their shared finances, managed it quietly through a property management firm. David had no idea she owned it. He'd always assumed they were just tenants, that their lease was with some anonymous corporate landlord. But the landlord was Diane. She'd been collecting rent from her own company for 7 years. A slow smile crossed her face. Not a happy smile. A strategic one. If David wanted to fire her, fine, but he was about to learn that she held more cards than he realized. Diane woke at 6 a.m. David's side of the bed was cold. He'd come home sometime after 2 a.m. and slept in the guest room. She showered, dressed in her best suit, did her makeup carefully. She looked at herself in the mirror. "You built this company," she told herself. "Don't let them erase you." She drove to the office, arrived at 7:30 a.m. before most of the staff. David's car was already in the parking lot. So was Vanessa's. Diane walked past reception, past the open workspace, straight to David's office. The door was closed. She could hear voices inside, David's and Vanessa's. She knocked once, didn't wait for a response. Opened the door. David looked up, startled. Vanessa sat across from him, a laptop open between them. "Diane," David said, "I didn't expect you." "I got your email," Diane said calmly. "The termination notice." An awkward silence. "Diane, we should discuss this privately," David began. "No." Diane's voice was steel. "We discuss it now, with her here." She looked at Vanessa. "Since apparently she's involved in all company decisions now." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. "David, maybe I should—" "Stay," Diane said. It wasn't a request. David stood. "Diane, this is a business decision. Nothing personal. We're restructuring and—" "Don't." Diane held up a hand. "Don't insult me with corporate speak. You fired me, via email, after 12 years. After building this company together. You owe me an explanation." David sighed, ran a hand through his hair. "You're right. I should have called you. That was handled poorly." "Handled poorly?" Diane's voice rose despite herself. "David, I'm your wife." "Which is exactly the problem." David's tone shifted, defensive. Diane, we can't keep mixing business and personal. It's complicated, it's messy, and honestly, your role here has become redundant. The word hit like a slap. Redundant. I see. Diane's voice went quiet, dangerous. So you're replacing me with her. It's not like that, Vanessa interjected. Diane, the company is evolving. We need different skill sets for the next phase and… I wasn't talking to you, Diane said coldly. Vanessa fell silent. David stepped forward. Diane, I'm offering you a generous severance package. 6 months' salary, full benefits through the end of the year. It's fair. Fair? Diane almost laughed. You think 6 months' salary is fair compensation for 12 years of my life? You'll land on your feet. You're talented. Any agency would be lucky to… I don't want another agency. Diane's voice cracked. I wanted this one. Our one. David looked away. Guilt flickered across his face, but he smothered it. I'm sorry. The decision is final. Diane stared at him. This man she'd loved. This man she'd built a life with. He was a stranger. Fine, Diane said quietly. I'll be out by the end of the week. She turned to leave. Diane, David called after her. For what it's worth, thank you. For everything. She didn't respond, didn't look back. She walked out of the office, down the hall, past curious employees who'd started arriving. She made it to her car before the tears came. Diane didn't cry for long. Crying was for grief, and grief required acceptance. Diane wasn't ready to accept anything yet. She was ready to fight. She called her attorney. Not the family lawyer, a new one, someone David didn't know, a woman named Patricia Helms who specialized in corporate disputes and had a reputation for being ruthless. Tell me everything, Patricia said. Diane did. The demotion, the humiliations, the affair, alleged but supported by evidence, the termination, the life insurance change. Patricia listened, taking notes. When Diane finished, Patricia leaned back in her chair. You have options, Patricia said. We can file a wrongful termination suit. Argue that you were forced out due to marital conflict, which creates a hostile work environment. We can also pursue division of marital assets, including the company itself. I don't want the company, Diane said. Not anymore. It's poisoned. Then what do you want? Diane thought. I want him to understand what he's lost. I want consequences. Patricia smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Then we need leverage. What do you have that he doesn't know about? Diane opened her briefcase, pulled out the building deed. Patricia's eyebrows rose. You own the building? Through an LLC. He has no idea. When's the lease up? 60 days. Patricia's smile widened. Oh, this is good. This is very good. Diane spent the day reviewing the building's lease with Patricia and the property management firm. Carter and Associates' lease was indeed up for renewal in 60 days. The company had been a reliable tenant. Rent always paid on time, no issues. But the lease had a clause. A standard clause Diane had insisted on 7 years ago, back when they were just starting to grow. Clause 14.3. Landlord reserves the right to decline lease renewal for any reason with 60 days' notice. Diane could simply choose not to renew, and if David wanted to fight it, he'd discover that his wife was the landlord. That would be satisfying, watching his face when he realized. But Diane wanted more than satisfaction. She wanted understanding. She wanted him to see what he'd thrown away. So she waited. David called her. First time in 10 days. Diane, we need to talk. About what? Her voice was neutral. I got a notice from the building management company. They're not renewing our lease. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? Diane, we have 60 days to relocate an entire office. Do you know how disruptive that is? I'm sure you and Vanessa will figure it out. You're both so talented. A pause. Can you help? You still have relationships with commercial real estate agents. You could... No. No? I don't work for Carter and Associates anymore. Remember? Diane, don't be petty. Petty? She laughed. A bitter sound. David, you fired me via email. You humiliated me in front of our entire team. You've been sleeping with... I haven't been sleeping with anyone. The denial was so quick, so reflexive that Diane almost believed it. Almost. Then what is she? Diane asked. What is Vanessa to you? Silence. David? It's complicated. Uncomplicated. More silence. Then, we can't have this conversation over the phone. Then come home tonight. We'll talk. I can't. I'm in Portland. With her? It's a business trip. Right. Of course it is. Diane hung up. Marcus called with an update. You need to see this. They met at the same coffee shop. Marcus slid a manila envelope across the table. Diane opened it. More photos. But these were different. David and Vanessa outside a building in Portland. Not a hotel, not a restaurant, an office building. What is this? Diane asked. They've been meeting with investors, Marcus said. Specifically, investors interested in buying Carter and Associates. Diane's blood went cold. What? David's been shopping the company. Quietly. He's looking for a buyer, someone who'll acquire the business and install new leadership. My source says he's close to a deal. He's selling. He's selling. Diane's mind raced. The restructuring, the firing, the pushing her out. It wasn't about an affair. It was about a sale. David was cleaning house, making the company more attractive to buyers by removing redundant leadership. Removing her. There's more, Marcus said. If the sale goes through, David stands to make around $8 million. He's planning to start a new venture with Vanessa. A new venture. A competing firm. They've already registered the LLC. It's called Reeves and Carter Consulting. Reeves and Carter. Not Carter and Reeves. Vanessa's name first. Diane felt nauseous. He's not just leaving me, she whispered. He's erasing me. Marcus's expression was sympathetic. I'm sorry. Diane closed her eyes, breathed. When she opened them, the grief was gone, replaced by something harder. How long until the sale closes? 30 days, maybe 45. Depends on due diligence. Diane nodded slowly. Thank you, Marcus. What are you going to do? I'm going to remind my husband who he's dealing with. Diane spent the next week moving in silence. She met with Patricia daily. They drafted documents, reviewed options, built a strategy. Diane also met with the property management firm, made some changes to the building lease, added some new clauses, adjusted some terms. Then she made a call to the potential buyers of Carter and Associates, a venture capital firm out of San Francisco. She introduced herself as the owner of the building where Carter and Associates currently operated. The VC firm was very interested in speaking with her. Very interested. David came home. It was 10 p.m. Diane was in the kitchen drinking tea. She'd been expecting him. We need to talk, David said. He looked exhausted, stressed. I agree. They sat at the kitchen table. The same table where they'd planned the company 12 years ago, where they'd celebrated their first big client, where they'd dreamed together. The building lease, David began. I've been trying to negotiate with the management company, but they're stonewalling. They won't even return my calls. Diane, I need your help. Can you reach out to the owner? Use your connections? Diane sipped her tea. I don't need to reach out to the owner. Why not? Because I am the owner. The color drained from David's face. What? I bought the building 7 years ago. Through an LLC. I'm your landlord, David. He stared at her, speechless. I own the building. I've been your landlord this entire time. David's hands gripped the edge of the table. Why didn't you tell me? Because it was mine. Separate from the business. Separate from us. I used my grandmother's inheritance. You never asked about it. Diane, and now the lease is up, Diane continued calmly. And I'm choosing not to renew. You're evicting us? I'm choosing not to renew your lease. There's a difference. David stood, paced. This is insane. You can't do this out of spite. Spite? Diane's voice rose. You fired me via email, David. You demoted me. You humiliated me. You've been planning to sell the company, our company, without telling me. You've been building a new business with another woman. Don't talk to me about spite. David froze. You know about the sale. I know everything. He sank back into his chair, ran his hands over his face. Diane, I was going to tell you. When? After it closed? I was trying to protect you. Protect me? Diane laughed. By pushing me out? By replacing me? By giving you a fresh start? David's voice cracked. Diane, we've been stuck for years. The company has been stagnant because we can't separate business from personal. Every decision becomes a marital negotiation. I can't tell you when your ideas aren't working because you're my wife. You can't challenge me without it feeling like you're attacking me. We've been suffocating each other. Diane stared at him. So your solution was to cut me out? My solution was to set us both free. David's eyes were red. I thought if I could sell the company, we could both move on. You could do something new. I could do something new. We could figure out our marriage without this business between us. And Vanessa? David looked away. Vanessa understands the business side. She doesn't carry all the baggage we carry. Baggage? You know what I mean. Diane stood. You're right about one thing. We've been stuck, but not because of the business. Because you stopped seeing me as a partner. You started seeing me as an obstacle. That's not. It is. Diane's voice was quiet now, sad. When did you stop respecting me, David? He didn't answer. I think you should leave, Diane said. This is my house. It's our house, and I'm asking you to leave. David stood, grabbed his keys. At the door, he turned back. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. He left. Diane stood alone in the kitchen. The house was silent. The fan rotated slowly above. She didn't cry. She was done crying. The next morning, Diane received a call from the VC firm considering the purchase of Carter and Associates. Ms. Carter, we need to schedule a meeting. There are some concerns about the acquisition. What kind of concerns? The building lease primarily. Our due diligence revealed that the current lease is non-renewable and expires in 30 days. We can't close on a company that doesn't have secured office space. Diane smiled. I understand. We'd like to meet with the building owner to negotiate a new lease as part of the acquisition terms. Can you facilitate that introduction? Actually, Diane said, I can do better than that. I am the building owner. When would you like to meet? The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. Diane, Patricia, the VC firm representatives, David, and Vanessa all sat around a conference table on the building's 10th floor, a neutral space Diane had arranged. David's jaw was tight. He hadn't known Diane would be there, hadn't known she'd be negotiating directly with the buyers. The lead investor, a man named Richard Chen, opened the discussion. Ms. Carter, we understand you own this property. We're prepared to offer a 10-year lease with favorable terms if you're willing to negotiate. I'm listening, Diane said. Richard outlined terms. Competitive rent. Built-in escalation clauses. Maintenance responsibilities. David watched her carefully, waiting. When Richard finished, Diane leaned forward. Before I agree to anything, I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. Mr. Chen, what are your plans for Carter and Associates post-acquisition? We'll maintain the brand and existing client relationships, install new leadership, scale operations. And current leadership? Diane glanced at David. Mr. Carter has agreed to stay on as a consultant for 6 months to ensure smooth transition. After that, he'll be free to pursue other ventures. I see. Diane turned to David. And Vanessa? Richard consulted his notes. Ms. Reeves has been offered a position as COO under the new structure. So that was the deal. David gets paid, walks away, starts his new company with Vanessa. Everyone wins. Except Diane. I have a counter-proposal, Diane said. The room went silent. I'll agree to a 10-year lease with one condition. I want a seat on the board of the newly acquired company. 20% equity stake, voting rights, and active involvement in strategic decisions. David's eyes widened. Diane, you can't... I can, Diane said calmly. You need this building. I own this building. Those are my terms. Richard and his colleagues exchanged glances. Ms. Carter, that's unconventional. We'd need to adjust the acquisition terms significantly. It would reduce Mr. Carter's payout. I'm aware. David stood abruptly. Diane, can we talk? Privately? She nodded. They stepped into the hallway. David's face was red. What are you doing? Negotiating. You're sabotaging the sale. I'm protecting my interests. Your interests? David's voice rose. Diane, you were bought out. You took severance. You're not part of this company anymore. But I own the building, and without my cooperation, there's no sale. Diane crossed her arms. You wanted to cut me out, David. Fine. But you don't get to profit off of what we built together while I walk away with nothing. 6 months severance isn't nothing. It's insulting. 12 years of my life, my ideas, my work. And you're offering me 6 months? David's expression shifted, desperation creeping in. What do you want? I told you. 20% equity, board seat. I'll give you 10%, no board seat. 20%, board seat, non-negotiable. They stared at each other. Years of partnership, years of marriage, all of it collapsed into this hallway negotiation. If I agree, David said quietly, we're done. You understand that? The marriage is over. Diane's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady. The marriage was over the moment you sent that email. David nodded slowly. Okay, 20%. Board seat. And one more thing. What? I want a formal apology, in front of everyone, for how you treated me. David's jaw clenched. You're humiliating me. No, I'm asking you to acknowledge what you did. A long silence. Finally, David nodded. Fine. They returned to the conference room. David cleared his throat. All eyes turned to him. Before we proceed, David said, his voice strained, I need to say something. Diane, the way I handled your departure from the company was unprofessional and disrespectful. You deserved better. You deserved honesty, conversation, and recognition for everything you contributed. I'm sorry. It wasn't eloquent, but it was real. Diane nodded. Thank you. Richard looked between them, clearly confused by the dynamics, but eager to close the deal. So, do we have an agreement? Pending adjustments to my equity stake, Diane said. Yes. We'll need to rework the acquisition terms, Richard said. Give us 48 hours. The revised deal was structured. Diane received 20% equity in the newly acquired company, a board seat, and secured a 10-year lease for the building at favorable rates. David's payout was reduced from $8 million to $5 million, still substantial, but not the windfall he'd planned. Vanessa's role was adjusted. She remained as COO, but reported to the board, which now included Diane. The sale closed 3 weeks later. Diane sat in the first board meeting of the newly restructured Carter and Associates. David was not present. His consulting period had been waived by mutual agreement. He'd taken his payout and walked away. Started Reeves and Carter consulting with Vanessa. Diane heard they were struggling. Clients were hard to come by without Carter and Associates' reputation behind them. Turns out David's charm didn't open doors the way it used to. But that wasn't Diane's concern anymore. She was focused on rebuilding. The new leadership team was strong, hungrier, more innovative than David had been in years. And Diane had a voice again, a real one. After the meeting, Richard approached her. "I have to admit, Ms. Carter, I didn't expect you to be this involved. Most people in your position would have taken the equity and stayed silent." "I'm not most people." "Clearly," he smiled. "For what it's worth, the team is excited you're here. Your reputation in this industry is solid. People respect you." Diane felt something warm in her chest, something she hadn't felt in months. Pride, not in the company, in herself. Diane filed for divorce. It was amicable as divorces go. David didn't contest. They divided assets according to Washington state law. The house sold quickly. Neither of them wanted to keep it. Diane bought a condo downtown, smaller, brighter, hers. She threw herself into work. The company was thriving under new management, and Diane's strategic vision was helping shape its next phase. They landed 3 major clients in 2 months. Revenue was up 18%, and Diane felt lighter. She started running again, something she'd abandoned years ago. Every morning at 6 a.m., she'd hit the trail along Lake Washington, watching the sunrise over the water. One morning, Jennifer texted her, "Coffee later? Want to catch up?" They met at a cafe near the office. Jennifer hugged her tight. "You look good, Di. Like, really good." "I feel good." "I heard about the board seat. That's amazing." "It's strange," Diane admitted. "Being back but not being back. But it's working." "And David?" "Haven't spoken to him in weeks. I heard his new company is not going well." Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "Karma?" Diane shook her head. "I don't believe in karma. I believe in consequences. He made choices. Now he's living with them." "Are you happy?" Diane considered the question. "I'm getting there." Diane received an unexpected call. "Miss Carter, this is Lauren Mitchell from Seattle Community Foundation. We received your application for our Women in Business grant program." Diane's heart jumped. She'd applied months ago, half forgotten in the chaos of the divorce and restructuring. "We're pleased to inform you that you've been selected as a grant recipient. Your proposal to mentor women entrepreneurs in the Seattle area was compelling. We'd love to discuss next steps." Diane's vision for the program was simple. Use her experience, the good and the bad, to help other women navigate business ownership, partnerships, and the complicated intersection of personal and professional life. She wanted to make sure no one else felt erased the way she had. The program launched 3 months later. Diane called it Foundation Forward. 12 women in the first cohort, all entrepreneurs, all facing challenges, funding, partnerships, confidence, visibility. Diane met with them weekly, shared her story, listened to theirs, and slowly, something unexpected happened. Diane healed, not because she'd won, not because David had lost, but because she'd found purpose beyond revenge. Diane stood on stage at the Seattle Convention Center. The Women in Business Summit had invited her to give the keynote address. 500 people in the audience. She looked out at the sea of faces, saw herself in them, the dreamers, the builders, the ones who'd been overlooked or pushed aside. "I want to tell you a story," Diane began, "about betrayal, about loss, and about what comes next." She told them about the email, the humiliation, the discovery, and she told them about the building, the negotiation, the board seat. "But here's what I learned," Diane said. "Revenge doesn't rebuild you. It doesn't make you whole. What rebuilds you is this: remembering your worth, remembering what you bring to the table, and refusing to let anyone, spouse, partner, colleague, convince you that you're redundant." The audience was silent, riveted. "When someone tries to erase you," Diane continued, "the most powerful thing you can do is this: show up, keep building, keep creating, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right." Applause erupted. After the speech, dozens of women approached her, shared their stories, thanked her. One woman, younger, maybe 25, said, "I was thinking about walking away from my business. My partner told me I wasn't essential. But after hearing you, I'm staying. I'm fighting." Diane hugged her. "Good. The world needs what you're building." Diane's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Diane, it's David. Can we talk?" She stared at the message, hadn't heard from him in over a year. She almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity won. "About what?" "I owe you a real apology, not the corporate one I gave at the meeting. A real one. Can I buy you coffee?" Diane hesitated. Then, "When?" They met at a cafe near Pike Place Market. Neutral territory. David looked different, older, tired. The sharpness in his eyes had dulled. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. "You said you wanted to apologize." "I do," David exhaled. "Diane, I was an idiot. I got caught up in, I don't even know what. The thrill of something new. The idea that I could reinvent myself. I convinced myself you were the problem. That if I could just remove you from the equation, everything would be easier." "And was it?" David laughed bitterly. "No. It was a disaster. Reeves and Carter folded 6 months ago. Vanessa and we weren't compatible as partners. Turns out she was more interested in the image of running a company than actually doing the work. We fought constantly. Eventually, she left, started something else. I'm sorry. Don't be. I earned it." David looked at her. "You were the best partner I ever had, business and personal, and I threw it away because I was too arrogant to see it." Diane didn't respond immediately. She sipped her coffee, watched the tourists bustling through the market outside the window. "Why are you telling me this?" she finally asked. "Because you deserve to hear it, and because I'm hoping, maybe, we can be friends, someday." Diane considered. "I don't think we can be friends, David. Too much happened." He nodded. "I understand." "But," Diane continued, "I forgive you." David's eyes widened. "You do?" "I do. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Holding on to anger wasn't serving me. So I'm letting it go." David's voice cracked. "Thank you." They finished their coffee, talked about small things, where they were living, what they were working on. It was awkward but civil. When they parted ways, David said, "I'm proud of you. What you've built with Foundation Forward, you're making a real difference." "Thank you." She walked away, didn't look back. Foundation Forward had grown, 3 cohorts completed, 48 women mentored, 12 new businesses launched, partnerships with local universities and funding organizations. Diane had become a sought-after speaker. Articles in Forbes and Inc. featured her story, not as a revenge tale, but as a story of resilience. She'd also started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but she was open to it. One evening, she stood on the balcony of her condo, watching the sun set over Elliott Bay. The sky was painted pink and orange. Her phone buzzed, a message from one of her mentees. "We just closed our Series A funding, $2 million. Thank you for believing in us when no one else did." Diane smiled. This was what victory looked like. Not destruction, not revenge, but creation. Building something new from the ashes of what was lost. She thought about the scared, angry woman she'd been 2 years ago. The one staring at a termination email, feeling erased. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who'd learned that power isn't about controlling others. It's about owning yourself. 3 years after the email, Diane received an invitation. Carter and Associates, now rebranded as Summit Strategy Group under new ownership, was celebrating its 15th anniversary. Diane almost didn't go, but curiosity and a sense of closure convinced her. The event was at a rooftop venue downtown, the same building she still owned. The lease had been renewed twice. The company was thriving. Diane arrived fashionably late. The space was packed. She recognized faces, former colleagues, clients, employees. Richard Chen spotted her. "Diane, so glad you came." "Wouldn't miss it." "I wanted to tell you, the board voted last week. We're expanding into Portland and San Francisco. Your strategic vision made this possible." "It's a team effort." "Maybe, but you're a hell of a team member." Diane mingled, laughed, reconnected. At one point, she found herself standing near the window, looking out over the city. Seattle glittered below, the Space Needle, the waterfront, the lights reflecting off the sound. A voice behind her, "Beautiful view." She turned. A woman she didn't recognize, mid-40s, confident smile. "It is," Diane agreed. "I'm Sarah, VP of Operations." "Diane, I'm on the board." "I know who you are." Sarah's smile widened. "You're kind of a legend around here. The woman who came back." Diane laughed. "I don't know about legend." "Are you kidding? Half the women in this company cite you as inspiration. You got pushed out and fought your way back. That takes guts." Diane felt emotion well up. She swallowed it down. "Thank you. That means more than you know." They talked for a while, shared stories. When Sarah excused herself, Diane remained by the window. She thought about David, wondered where he was, hoped he'd found peace. She thought about Vanessa, hoped she'd learned something. But mostly, she thought about herself, the journey, the pain, the growth. She'd been fired, betrayed, humiliated. And she'd survived. No, she'd thrived, because she'd owned the building all along, literally and metaphorically. She owned her worth, her story, her future, and no one could take that away. Diane raised her glass, a silent toast to herself, to resilience, to the long, hard road that led her here. Then she smiled and walked back into the party. Sometimes the best revenge is realizing you never needed revenge at all. You just needed to remember who you were. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. Have you ever felt underestimated? How did you prove them wrong? I want to hear your stories. And don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started.